Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine this scene. Tamil Nadu, that really vibrant state in India, known for its culture, yeah, but also some pretty dynamic politics.
Right.
And right in the middle of that, bam,
Yeah.
a court order lands. Not just any order, but one setting a hard deadline.
Mm-hmm. And this one's from the Madras High Court. It's aimed squarely at the Tamil Nadu government, telling them basically, you need to produce a draft policy.
And specifically for transgender persons.
Yeah.
That's the key part.
Exactly. And when you look at, well, all the background material, we've got court stuff, reports from community meetings, news clips on things they've tried before. You see, it's not just like one single moment.
No, it's layered.
Totally. You've got the courts pushing, you've got the government machinery that has to actually do it, and then you have the community itself advocating, pushing, demanding action for years, really.
So our goal here, what we want to do in this deep dive, is cut through some of that complexity for you. We want to help you grasp the really crucial bits. The court's timeline, the actual reasons why a separate policy is needed, Tamil Nadu's own history with this, which is, well, kind of unique.
It is, yeah.
And what people, on the ground are actually asking for, what they need.
It's all about understanding what this piece of paper, this potential policy, could actually mean in the real world.
Okay, so where does this specific push start? The real flashpoint seems to be June 9th, 2025.
Yeah, that's the date. Justice N. Anand Venkatesh at the Madras High Court. He laid down the directive.
And it landed on the desk of the Social Welfare Department. Jayashree Muralidharan, the secretary there, is the one who has to deliver.
And the deadline, July 21st, 2025. That's when they need to submit a draft policy, just for transgender persons.
And the judge apparently made a point of saying no extensions.
Right. That phrase itself, no extensions, tells you something, doesn't it?
It does. It signals some real urgency, maybe some impatience, like this isn't the first rodeo.
Exactly. Our sources kind of hint that this isn't, a brand new conversation. It feels like it's been simmering for a while.
Which makes sense.
Huh.
This order, it came up during other court hearings, right? About the wider LGBTQIA plus community's welfare.
Correct. It shows how the courts, maybe especially Justice Venkatesh in this case, are really acting as catalysts. Sometimes maybe the main driver pushing for these kinds of social policies.
Yeah, it really feels like the judiciary is stepping in, where maybe the executive or legislative branches have been slow or, bogged down.
And the background material suggests this specific need for a trans policy, it's been on the table for a significant time. It wasn't just dreamt up in June.
So there's probably a history there of delays, maybe bureaucratic hurdles, stuff getting stuck.
That seems likely, yeah.
Which brings us to the core question, really. Why the push for a separate policy? Why not just fold it into a broader LGBTQIA plus policy?
Well, that's exactly what was debated. We saw mentions from back in February 2024 where the state's own Transgender Welfare Board was making that case.
What was their argument?
Basically, they said, look, a general LGBTQIA plus policy is good, it's necessary, but just putting trans people under that big umbrella, it's not enough. Trans women, trans men, intersex individuals, they face very specific, often very intense challenges.
Challenges that are different from, say, cisgender, gay men, or lesbians.
Exactly. Things that need targeted solutions in a policy.
Like what specifically?
Well, healthcare is a huge one. Access to gender-affirming care surgeries, hormones, mental health support, that's very specific.
Right. Not something covered in general health policy usually.
Precisely. Then there's employment, unique barriers, discrimination in hiring, workplace harassment. It often looks different for trans people.
And just the day-to-day social stigma dealing with documentation, legal recognition.
All of that. It requires focused policy interventions. And this ties right back to that huge Supreme Court decision, the Nell-Essa judgment from 2014.
Ah, yes. Nell-Essa. That was massive.
Groundbreaking. It legally recognized trans persons as a third gender. And crucially, it mandated reservations for them in education, in government jobs.
Mandated. But here we are, what, 11 years later?
More than a decade, yeah. And the actual doing of it, the implementation on the ground in states like Tamil Nadu, it's still very much a work in progress.
So this policy is seen as the mechanism to finally make that Nell-Essa mandate real at the state level.
That's a big part of it. And central to that is this idea of horizontal reservation.
Okay, explain that a bit. It sounds technical, but it seems important.
It is. So horizontal reservation isn't about creating a whole new separate quota category just for trans people like you have for SC, ST, or OBC.
Okay.
Instead, it means carving out a percentage within those existing categories. So a certain number of spots reserved for OBC candidates would be specifically set aside for trans OBC candidates. Same within SC, ST, even the general category.
Ah, okay. So it ensures trans people get representation across the board within the existing structure.
Exactly. It stops them from having to compete only against each other in a potentially tiny separate quota or getting lost in the general pool.
And the sources mentioned that the draft LGBTQIA+ policy does talk about this, a 1% horizontal reservation.
It does recommend it, yes, for trans and intersex people. But the activists, the community, they really want this cemented in a separate, dedicated trans policy.
Why the insistence on separate?
I think the fear is that within a broader LGBTQIA+ policy, the specific needs of trans people, especially something like reservation, which directly relates to NOLASA, might get diluted or deprioritized or just harder to track and enforce.
Okay, that makes sense. Ensuring it doesn't get lost in the shuffle.
Pretty much. It's about focus and making sure that specific as-a-else mandate is front and center for trans individuals.
So given all that, what are the specific things the community is asking for? What do you activists want to see in this draft policy by July come 1st?
Well, looking at the consultations from 2024, the demands are very practical, very focused on, tangible improvement.
Okay.
Horizontal reservations are number one, making that 1% quota in schools, colleges, government jobs a concrete reality, not just a recommendation.
Makes sense. What else?
Healthcare, big time. They want the state's main health insurance scheme, the chief minister's comprehensive health insurance scheme, to explicitly cover gender-affirming procedures.
Treating them as medically necessary, not elective or cosmetic.
Exactly. It's about access to essential care. Then there's economic empowerment.
How so?
Things like subsidies, easier access to loans for trans entrepreneurs, helping people start businesses, gain financial independence because traditional employment can be so difficult.
Right, tackling the economic vulnerability.
And basic safety. Strengthening anti-discrimination laws, making them actually work. Plus, sensitization programs for police, doctors, teachers, government officials, making sure people understand and respect trans identities.
We saw some specific names mentioned, too, people voicing these demands.
Yeah.
Like Kalki Subramaniam.
Yeah, an activist. There was mention of her at a protest in Chennai, I think back in 2023. She was articulating that feeling of, don't just lump us in with the LGBT community.
Because the challenges are different.
Very different, yeah. Needing specific solutions, tailored interventions.
And there was another activist mentioned, Villadhan, focusing on intersex issues.
Right. Particularly concerned about policies around medical interventions on intersex infants. That's a whole complex area needing clear ethical guidelines to protect children.
So a lot of very specific, very grounded demands based on lived experience.
Definitely. It's not abstract. It's about daily life.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly and look at Tamil Nadu itself.
Yeah.
Because the state does have this reputation, right, as being ahead of the curve on trans issues in India.
It does, and it's not entirely undeserved. They were pioneers in many ways.
Like the Transgender Welfare Board?
Absolutely. First state to set one up way back in 2008. That was huge then.
And offering free gender-affirming surgeries in government hospitals? That was also pretty early, wasn't it?
Yes, another first. And amending police rules to try and curb harassment. These were significant steps, especially for the time.
And it hasn't stopped, right? There have been more recent things, too.
Oh, yeah. There's the Thirunangai mobile app from 2021, designed to make getting official ID cards easier.
And it seems to be working. The numbers suggest over 10,000 cards issued by May 2025.
Yeah, seems like it's reaching people. There's also a monthly pension, Rs 1500, for destitute trans persons. They even lowered the age limit for it recently from 50 down to 40.
Showing some responsiveness, maybe.
Perhaps. And an annual award, Rs 1 lakh, for outstanding trans individuals on Transgender Day, April 15th, recognizing achievement.
And education seems to be a focus, too. I saw something about student stipends in the 2025 budget.
Yes, that was a notable step. Finance Minister Thangam Thanarasu announced it. Existing schemes, like the Pruthamai Penthidam, which gives girls Rs 1,000 a month for higher education, were explicitly extended to transgender students.
That's direct financial help. Important.
Very. And there's even a pilot project trying to get 50 trans people into the Home Guard in Chennai and surrounding areas. Plus, that glossary of LGBTQIA plus terms in Tamil from 2022, trying to promote respectful language.
So you list all that out, and it sounds pretty good. Proactive, even.
It does. On paper, Tamil Nadu has definitely made efforts, launched initiatives, shown intent.
But There's always a but, isn't there?
There often is. The big critique we see coming through is that despite all these schemes and firsts, the systemic change, the change felt day to day on the ground, it's just painfully slow.
Discrimination is still happening.
Widely, yes. In schools, trying to find a job, even accessing healthcare in those same government hospitals, the lived reality for many hasn't caught up with the policy announcements.
And that crucial 1% reservation, the NELSO mandate,
Yeah.
still just a proposal in a draft policy, not implemented statewide.
Exactly. The analogy used in one source was quite apt, I thought. Implementation just gets lost in the bureaucracy.
Like a great idea at the top that somehow fizzles out before it reaches the people it's meant to help.
Yeah, something like that. The sheer size of the state machinery, maybe lack of consistent political will, funding issues, deep-seated social prejudice, it all plays a part.
Which brings us back to the courts and Justice Venkatesh. It explains why he's been so persistent.
Absolutely. His involvement goes back to at least 2021. He didn't just issue this policy deadline. He's the one who banned conversion therapy in the state. He's consistently pushed for trans persons to be treated as a special category needing specific attention.
And it wasn't just him, right? Other judges were involved too.
That's right. Justice Pavani Subbaroyan, in June 2024, specifically told the Home Secretary to treat trans applicants for public jobs as a separate category. She even suggested things like lower cutoff scores or age relaxation to compensate for historical disadvantage.
So you see a pattern of judicial intervention trying to force the system to adapt.
A very clear pattern. Even Justice Venkatesh himself, earlier this year, February 2025, called for both a unified LGBTQIA+ policy and a separate dedicated trans proposal. He saw the need for both the broad and the specific.
It really underscores the understanding, at least within parts of the judiciary, that the current approach just isn't cutting it.
Right. And all of this context, all this history, it just adds weight to this July 21st deadline.
It highlights the hurdles the government is up against, the bureaucracy we mentioned. Finding the money, tackling that deep-rooted social stigma. None of that is easy.
Not at all. But the significance of getting this right, it really goes beyond just Tamil Nadu.
How so?
Well, if they manage to produce a really strong, comprehensive, implementable policy, it could be a game changer. It would build directly on LLSA and show other states in India how it can be done.
Setting a precedent,
Yeah.
a practical roadmap.
Exactly. It could energize efforts elsewhere. But the flip side,
If they miss the deadline again, or if the policy is weak, just tick in a box.
and then it sends a different message. It reinforces the idea that even pioneering states struggle to turn legal rights into reality for marginalized groups. It could be quite demoralizing.
So the stakes feel pretty high for this July 21st date. Will it be a bold step forward, really reflecting what the community needs and what NALELSA intended?
Or will it be, a minimal compliance kind of thing? Just enough to get the court off their back for a while.
And for you listening, why does this matter? Why track a policy draft in one Indian state?
Because ultimately, this is about basic fairness. It's about dignity.
Yeah, it's about whether a group of people, transgender people, get a genuine shot at the things everyone else takes for granted.
Education, a job, healthcare, safety. A policy is a tool, maybe an imperfect one, but a vital one, to try and level that playing field, to give people, as you said, a fair shot at building a life.
So quite a journey we've covered. We've looked at that sharp court deadline,
Mm-hmm. The pressure point.
the really crucial reasons why a separate policy is being demanded, not just a general one.
The specific needs, yeah.
Tamil Nadu's own story, the pioneering steps mixed with those real, persistent challenges,
That complex history.
and the very clear, practical things the community is asking for, their demands.
Absolutely. Grounded in reality.
That July 21st deadline, then, it's more than just a date on a calendar.
Oh, much more. It really feels like a moment where we'll see if Tamil Nadu can take that next decisive step. Can they translate the legal recognition, the promises, into actual lived equality? If we connect this to the bigger picture, what's happening in Tamil Nadu is really a microcosm, isn't it? You see this dynamic everywhere. Court orders pushing against government inertia, community voices demanding to be heard.
It shows how progress for marginalized communities often happens. It's a fight, it's incremental, sometimes frustratingly slow.
Right. And it forces us, I think, to ask what genuine inclusion really means. It's clearly more than just saying the right words or even passing a law.
It needs the follow-through. The detailed plans, the resources, the political will to actually break down those systemic barriers.
Exactly. It makes you really think about that gap, the gap between acknowledging someone's rights on paper and actually making those rights real, tangible in their everyday life. That's the challenge, not just for Tamil Nadu, but everywhere.